Saturday to you. I hope you are having a great Saturday and an amazing weekend so far. It's a rainy one here, so it's that kind of weekend. We're getting some good rain here, but I hope you're having, like I said, a great weekend and have had an amazing week. My name is Don Terrell, and I want to welcome you to another great episode of The Color of Motion. I like to say, hey, stories come in all shades, and I highlight people of color and diverse backgrounds in the industry of motion graphics, animation, visual effects, cartoons, comics, and all that good creative stuff that I love, love, love so much. You know the drill. Hop into the comments, say hey where you're tuning in from, because you know how I like to say this is an interactive show for sure. While I make sure that all the housekeeping stuff is going on and we are broadcasting on all the channels like we should be. Restream is going all right. Let me see. YouTube, we are broadcasting on YouTube. I always have trouble with Facebook. Facebook is the one that always said I'm broadcasting on Facebook. So we are live in the Facebook group, live on, I don't know, did I do LinkedIn? Yeah, I did LinkedIn. Let me see. Make sure that I am live on LinkedIn. Hop into the comments. Say where you're tuning in from, and all that good stuff. I'm trying to think of whether I want to do this before or after I get started here. Well, let me get the housekeeping stuff out the way. Let me give a big shout out to today's sponsor of the show. I'd like to thank DG Graphics. They do all our graphics, animations, overlays, images, and all that good stuff, and basically help us look good and help us look professional. So I want to give a big shout out for them for always sponsoring the show. And if you're a business or a brand that's looking to level up your brand design, really create engaging, interactive content, then you definitely need to check out DG Graphics for sure. Also, this year, you know, I'm being big on supporting the show and supporting the channel. I love a great cup of coffee. buymeacoffee.com/Don Terrell. I'm still working to set up our Patreon page. But there you can, you know, donate whatever amount you choose. Any amount definitely helps me to continue to create content, put great content up on the show and the channel, and really get great guests for the show as well. Also, you can check us out on Spotify and some of the audio platforms out there, Amazon Music, iHeartRadio music. There you can find out and check if you're that type that likes to listen to audio and just, you know, on the go type of thing. You can check out some of the episodes there as well. But I do always encourage, like I said, we're live on the LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook group and whatnot. But I do always encourage everybody to kind of get plugged into the YouTube channel. That's where all the content goes up. That's where you're able to connect with everybody. And it's a great way of getting notified or when the show goes live. And again, when, you know, great content goes up on the channel, definitely looking to put more great content as this year goes on. It's hard to believe we're in season 6 here. So before we get this kicked off here, I definitely have to give a big apology for today's episode. Hopefully I was able to get out a last minute post today, but unfortunately we had a mishap, and there was an issue with Monday being able to come on the show today. So hopefully we'll be able to, you know, rectify that in the future, but just wanted to definitely make, and it was last minute, and you know how these things go, especially with live. You have to kind of roll with it, and again, I was able to get out at least this morning, kind of an update. So don't want anybody to get sticker shock when they come. Definitely, we're going to have a great conversation because I'm kind of going to go and continue on in the conversation of what I was going to have with Monday. But and we'll get into that once we get off into the conversation. But I definitely always want to, you know, let you, my viewers, know and apologize to you because I do, try to make sure that this show comes off as a professional show. And when mishaps happen, I definitely want to inform you. And when things come up, definitely want to let you know. But we always tend to have a good time and tend to have a great episode as well. What else? Man, trying to get these housekeeping stuff out the way. I think we're pretty much good to go. Again, I'm going to kind of keep this along the same vein, what I was hoping to talk with Monday about, which is games, interactivity, and user experience, especially on kind of what I do on the corporate business side and using gamification and just the user experience and the technology out there. So I want to have a fun conversation about AR, which is kind of what I've been experimenting with, and just how businesses and brands can use AR. And of course, in AR, there's motion graphics, animation, 3D. There's so much that you can use within an AR experience. Um, that's what I've been really kind of experimenting with and playing with, is how to kind of get that across, that businesses and brands on the corporate level can use interactivity to create a great user experience. So we're going to have a fun conversation diving into that. And I think with that, we can kind of get this going. Okay. Yeah, we are back. We are back. We are back. We are back and ready to get this show on the road. Mr. Wingbush. What up? What up? What up? I know I shouldn't have done that, but you say it so uniquely. I'm gonna have to try. What up? What up? What up? I've been enjoying your videos in Unreal Training and Comfy UI. Definitely want to have you on to talk about Comfy UI. I've been kind of starting to kind of get into it a little myself. So look, I've been enjoying your content for sure. Definitely looking forward to having you back on, Mr. Wingbush. Again, people tuning in, my biggest apologies. Obviously, I am not my guest, Mr. Monday, Atugonu, for coming on. Obviously, he's not here. There was a last minute mishap that, is just, I know you got a kick out of that. There was a last minute mishap, an issue that came up that prevented him from being on the show today. So we are going to, and you know what I always say, which is the nature of live stream. You roll with it and you just go on. But I do want to have a great conversation about kind of what I wanted to have with Monday, which is talking about games, user experience, interactivity, and how that plays again on the user experience side. Definitely with what I've been kind of playing with AR, and just the user experience of it, and gamification is a big thing, not just on the entertainment side, but a lot of people may not be aware that even on the corporate business level, which is kind of where I deal with in companies, they use gamification, and it's a great tool, training tool, as for one thing, great educational tool as another. So I really want to kind of dive into just talking about how businesses and brands can kind of leverage the newer technology, AR, gamification, and creating a great user experience for the end user. Mr. Winbush, Comfy, yeah, is his new jam. That's the thing about software. There's always a software that comes up that is the thing that you need to focus on. And just having brain overwhelm of learning new software can be challenging. And just focusing on one software is hard enough for sure. Uh, as I always say, this is an interactive show, so I want you to be interactive about it. And again, the topic, was how founders can use AR to stand out, kind of in this crowded marketplace. I think in today's market place, especially kind of with companies and corporations, now they're realizing that they have to build this kind of community, and people want to be engaged with so much uh, what's the stimulus with so much stimulation that people are getting now from everywhere, whether it's social media, whether it's you know their phone is giving you constant stimulation. We're getting all this stimulation from different areas. So as a business or brand, how do you engage and keep a person's attention? How do you get your message across in a way that is going to be remembered by, you know, your audience, your customers, your clients, and the people that you're trying to serve? And so I've been kind of trying to build case studies on how that can be accomplished on a brand business company kind of level. And I think one of the hardest things founders face today is kind of, again, standing out in this market where everybody's trying to look polished, where everybody's trying to give this perception. And I've been having this conversation uh, a lot lately that my word for this year has been reality. In this age of AI and, just this of, you know, AI and artificial, generative AI and all of that. And, people are wanting to see this kind of, realness. And I've been seeing a lot of kind of behind the scenes. And I've been posting a few on myself, more making of videos because the process, I think, and Jonathan, you do a great job of that as well. Posting, videos of you showing the process of what you're learning and the things that you're creating is this way of building this connection that is real. That, I think people are kind of getting lost in this AI of not knowing what's real, not knowing, what people have really made and what they haven't really made, and what people can really do and what AI has done for them, type of thing. So that's my word for the year is real, and I think you know uh, that's what founders are kind of facing in this mass time of all the stuff that we're seeing. How do you authentically, which can be a cliche kind of word, how can you authentically connect with your audience and in an engaging way? And that's why I love AR, because I feel like it allows that in a fun, engaging way. And I know I get this conversation a lot that it's a niche thing. It's, really kitschy and it's more a novelty type of thing. But I tend to kind of disagree. I feel like there's a space, and a small space right now, because it is new, relatively new, in most businesses, especially businesses in corporate businesses and regular mainstream businesses. It is relatively new for them, but kind of the bigger brands and more the entertainment type of companies and businesses, they're probably aware of AR and VR and some of the newer technologies and more innovative ways of marketing and branding themselves. But you know, most of the companies and brands that I deal with are more on the medium scale. So getting that to across to them of how they can use it, how it can benefit them is always the learning curve, especially on something that's, again, not mainstream. So I want to talk a little bit about that. Again, if you have questions, if you use AR, have used AR, or use a software, there's a lot of great softwares out there. that provide this interactive experience. And again, you know, I wanted to dive a little deeper into just the kind of the technical side of gaming and how it can be used on this other side of marketing and branding. I get the gaming companies, and you got people love to play games. League of Legends. There are a lot of games out there. I love games. I love PG golf games. There's so many games out there, but the potential of how gamification can be used on a educational, learning, social level is, I think, still untapped space. And as I mentioned before, I've been kind of putting together case studies of just different brands and how different brands, can, usually. Uh, I want to remember this before, and I'm kind of getting off track here, but I did want to show kind of a little bit of, just kind of how I've been experimenting with it and using it and kind of showing brands how they can leverage, particularly AR, because I'm not doing a great amount in VR as of yet. AR is kind of that. I feel like AR is that low hanging kind of thing because everybody has a smartphone. VR is still, still a little ways away, obviously, VR, because it is that kind of total immersive experience that they haven't quite got down to the mobile aspect that VR AR has. So that's why I feel like AR has this unique potential to be used, especially when people are already familiar with the concept of scanning a barcode or using their camera to scan something to get information. You're just adding this interactive layer over top of it. So I've been trying to find fun case studies that I can kind of play around with, and kind of the first one, which I have posted, and it's been kind of I guess, an interesting learning experience, not only for just the software, but obviously for uh, the potential of what it can be used for. Let me throw this in. And this was, again, it's I want to show it because it's just, this is not a plug for the brewery. This was just, like I said, a personal kind of project and a kind of test case study for them, for me, because it was a package, just a beer, their beer IP, but I loved the packaging, and I thought it was a really cool packaging that I could make a really fun AR experience and just show how the potential of how you can use it. So you can scan that. Obviously, it's meant to work viewing it on the actual product, but you can scan that and point it at the artwork, and you will get the experience and get kind of idea of how it can be used, which is kind of the whole purpose of that. But I do want to kind of preface that, like any campaign, you have to be kind of intentional about how you're using it. And I think that's the misconception that I think people kind of get, that some businesses or brands can get kind of tripped up, where they're thinking that it's just used as a novelty type of thing and not strategically thinking about, well, how can I use this to elevate my brand, bring brand awareness, or have a fun call to action type of thing, or just give information out in a different kind of way that's going to reach my audience. And so, I don't know if everybody knows IKEA. IKEA's been using AR for quite a while, and where you can visually see in their case, they're using 3D objects and 3D models, but you can visually see an augmented CG object in your live environment, which is what AR is. And so that's a great case study in and of itself of how a business and a brand can leverage the power of the newer technology, and keep brand awareness up. I want to hear, what your thoughts are. Is just gamification, um, user experience, the use of motion graphics, animation, in this visual experience. Now we're seeing all these tools that are, whether they're AI or whether they're just regular, traditional tools. We're seeing all these tools that are designed around creating uh, uh, an, an experience, a user experience in some form or fashion, whether it's the final user experience or whether it's an element for that user experience, whether or a video for that user experience. So I think that's kind of what we're seeing a lot of now with a lot of these newer softwares that are starting to come out. Jonathan just mentioned Comfy UI. It's a great piece of software. I'm not even going to profess to say I'm a Comfy UI aficionado yet. I just started playing around with it, but it is interesting software. Like anything node based for me, it's a little hard to wrap my head around because it is node based. So if you're not a node based type of person, it may take you a little bit to wrap your head around it. And that's kind of the case with me. But again, it's a tool that allows creators to create these elements that, along with other elements, create this user experience for people, and customer journey that makes it fun for the customer to be a part of. And that's kind of been my quest for this year as far as working with and educating businesses and brands um, on just that, the possibility of how it can be used and where you can take it. Again, a lot of that comes with sitting down and being intentional about what you want to use it for, and is it the right tool for the right job. It may not be. I want to throw this in here. Oh, it came out right. Been using Comfy with Claude, and it's been kind of fun. Like I said, I use Claude more on the, kind of like, Chat GPT, as far as, outlines, notes, and just kind of brainstorming things. I do use Claude in that sense, and Claude is a great tool. A little more tech. I think I find it a little more technical than Chat GPT, but it's a great tool nonetheless. So I'd be interested to see, kind of how, like I said, I've been enjoying your videos for sure, and how you're using, Claude in conjunction with Comfy, UI, for sure. I wish, what I wish you'd have done, which, I don't, you don't have a Mac, so you didn't do it, but you did the video you did was the installation of, Comfy UI, the whole process, but it was from Windows perspective. I wish it was from a Mac. I had a little trouble with that, so I'm having to use the online version of it installer. So still working on that. So if you have any, if you do have any information on the Mac side, Jonathan, of Comfy UI, I would appreciate that for sure. Again, we're having, for all my guests that are just tuning in, no, I'm not my guest, Monday, Atugono. Atugono. I make sure I want to say it right. Atugono. I'm not him. Like I said, there was a last minute issue that came up that prevented him from being on the show today. Uh, I'm sorry. I saw Jonathan's remark, so I had to laugh. But there was a last minute issue that prevented Monday from being on the show today. Hopefully, we can work that out and have it back on very soon. But today is kind of a fireside, you know, chat kind of day. I wanted to talk about kind of parallel to what I was going to talk a little bit about with Monday, just games and gamification and user experience. because as I mentioned earlier, I've been doing some case studies and putting together some case studies on how, I guess, typical businesses and brands can use gamification and kind of think about how they can use it for creating a better user experience, a more engaging and interactive user experience, especially as games are tools are getting better, softwares are getting better and faster. So uh, and phones are able to process much more information. It gives you this ability to make these really interesting and fun and engaging campaigns. But I always say that the typical average business or brand, doesn't think along the lines of using AR. So that's where I feel like I have fun educating and informing businesses such as, plumbing businesses. I mean, in every case, I feel like there's a way that you can use it, especially since AR works so well with print marketing. And I feel like every business, there's a level of print material that you put out. So you can kind of give new life to your print marketing material. If you're a business or a brand that does a lot of trade shows, you can add an extra level to your displays by adding an AR experience to it. So there's areas of where I want to get businesses and brands to kind of think out of the box of how these newer technologies can be used to make an interactive experience. I have to throw this in because so true, but get me a PC. I always said, while I love Mac, I'm not a Mac kind of fanboy, but I do love the simplicity, which is what drew me to Mac. This is a little off topic, obviously, but this show is a fireside chat show. Uh, Obviously, what drew me to Macs was the ease of use. I have, the first machine I did guess I had was a PC that I built. It was a Pentium 2 or 1 Pentium machine. That was when they were using Pentiums. Uh, and I think it was Windows. I can't remember what version of Windows it was. Yeah, I can't remember. NT. I think it was NT. Windows NT is when I built my machine. Uh, but and I love, like I said, obviously Max was just ease of use, and it just they were kind of graphically high. The only thing I do, I always said, the only thing I don't really like about Max is really is a closed ecosystem. So you are kind of locked in when you purchase a Mac on a lot of things. Whereas a PC, you do have, it really is customizable. And I always said, if I was, when I put together my new system, a really horsepower editing animation system, um, it will be a PC because I do think the cards are better. The cards are more geared towards you know the type of stuff that I do. So I am gonna get one, but stay on me, brother. Stay on me for sure. Also, am I going to? I wish I was. I wanted to go this year to NAB. I know I'm going to miss you there, brother, and I know you're going to do a great present. I think you're going. You're doing a presentation at NAB. Yeah, I was hoping to go this year. Maybe, definitely next year. I want to put that on my calendar to go to NAB. Obviously, I love Vegas. I will be out to Vegas later on this year, but yeah, I do love Vegas. Uh, Again, for everybody just tuning in, uh, I'm not Monday. Again, I want to apologize. We did have Monday, my guest Monday, Atugono, scheduled, but again, a last minute issue came up and he was not able to make it to be on the show today. So um, hopefully, we can get that rectified. But today, I wanted to have kind of like a fireside chat talking about a little about, well, in the same vein of what we were going to talk about anyway, which was gaming, interactive games, really gamification, because I think that goes along in the user experience of games and how games can be used. I think I said before, I remember I talked with a company that was, doing work, and they were an animation company, 3D and visualization company, but they were doing work for an oil company, doing a training, basically making a game of a training video. And I've, witnessed, training videos myself in VR. Of course, that's VR, and that's full immersive experience, but it shows the power of how you can use these newer technologies in a much more powerful way of training, engaging, and really making a great, I always say, user experience. I think it comes down to the user experience. Any good business, I always say, I feel like any good business comes down to the user experience. Is the user having a great experience when dealing with your brand? If they aren't, if they don't have a great experience when dealing with your brand, more than likely they're going to move to another brand. If they do have a great experience and you treat them like, wow, I love this company, they're going to buy and just support and be a loyal, evangelist for your brand. If they have a great brand experience, you see it enough with Apple. You see it enough with Apple. You see it enough with, Nike and all the brands. If they make a good experience for the user, then more than likely they're going to support their brand, for sure. Uh, Everybody just tuning in. Again, I hope you're having a great Saturday and an amazing weekend. This is The Color of Motion. Well, I like to say, hey, stories come in all shades. We're having a fun conversation talking about AR and how businesses and brands can leverage the power of AR to create a great, engaging, interactive experience for the end user, and how businesses should start to think about how they can use it, have a clear direction. Again, a lot of businesses, especially the ones that haven't really used it, are going to think of it as a novelty thing and just, try and use it for use sake. Always have a plan when you're going to use it, just like any campaign. Have an idea what you're going to use it for, because you want to use the right tool for the right job. And an AR campaign or an AR experience may not be the right thing, or the campaign that you choose may not be the right thing. There's a lot of different campaigns. It could be just brand awareness. It could be you put a call to action in and you want the end user to do something. Um, or it could be educational, and you're just giving them information, but you're doing it in an entertaining and an engaging way. A lot of museums are leveraging it. It's really infiltrating, and it's not and it's in a space where they're not. It's not unknown to them. Museums are using the interactive experiences, obviously, to engage the people that are coming to the museums to learn. And so it's a great tool uh, that businesses, I think, are kind of passing over, especially the average business. Now, again, AR is not, you got to figure out the return on it. It's not, definitely not just a inexpensive thing, although you can figure out these kind of small campaigns to test out and see if this is something that you want to go all in on. But I do, like I always say, feel like AR, especially in the corporate branding and marketing space, is this kind of untouched gem. And for me, it's been the challenge of educating and just showing. And so you have to really see it. You're not going to get it. And that's the thing about AR. You can't really explain it. You can, but most people aren't really going to get it until they experience it. And that's where, it sticks with them on, and then they start to think of how they can use it. And that's why I would suggest testing it out. Obviously, I did a post because again, I wanted to kind of test it out and then show how it can be used and just the power of what you can do with it. Now, remember, again, it is for this container. So normally you would scan the container. The container would have the barcode on it. It's always bright. I think my light is too light. Normally the container would have the obviously barcode on it, and you would scan the barcode, and then you scan it, and that's the beauty also of AR. It sticks, so it'll move with the product, and so it's a great, I think, a great way of in store um, getting people's attention. Again, if you're definitely if you do a lot of trade shows, uh, getting people's attention. One thing I have noticed, and this is something that's starting to become, um, I think, a little more prevalent as I do more conferences. I just got done doing a conference, and you see a lot of vendors with their booths and everything like that. I've been seeing a lot of like those 3D like fans that project a 3D image. It's just a different kind of advertising and marketing that stands out that people kind of stop and look at. It may be people may think of it as kind of kitschy, or kind of a novelty thing, but it served its purpose in that it made you stop and look at it and think about, oh yeah, that's pretty cool. um you may not rush to buy the brand, but when it comes to brand awareness, it's a time thing. It's all over time when brand awareness starts to stick, and it really becomes ingrained in your head there. Everybody just joining in, please jump into the comments. We're talking AR, branding, interactive experiences, gamification, which is kind of a big thing now. And I think there's a lot of businesses finding ways of engaging not only students, but just older people as well. There was one, I met one person. She was using VR to go to elderly homes, and giving them VR experiences as a way of engaging their senses and giving them an experience. So I think, again, thinking out of the box of how you can use some of these newer technologies, and you're obviously seeing a lot of that with AI. You got a lot of people that are using AI and thinking out of the box of how they can use it and how they can apply it to their business or their brand type of thing. I always like to tell, it's great for explaining complex processes and products, abstract services. These are just some of the ways that AR, VR can be used. Um, Trust gaps, onboarding, confusion. Like I said, training material, um, emotional storytelling, which is what the lady with the VR going to the elderly home is kind of doing. This emotional storytelling and keeping people engaged. People nowadays want to feel like they're invested in whatever product or company they buy, and they patronize. They want to feel like they're a part of it, and the good ones do. Again, the good ones make their user experience a great experience for the end user. Um, have any I want to jump over here. Any comments? Please, please, please hop into the comments and say, hey, where you tuning in from. If you have any thoughts on this or anything else. Again, this is a fireside kind of chat thing, where we've had to, again, pivot. Uh, and I've said this, a few times throughout the show, and I'll say it again. I always have to apologize to my viewers, having to make the shift and having to make the pivot. But I always thank you, because you're a forgiving audience, and I've explained over the 6 years I've been doing this that live is just that kind of a beast where Live, there's things that can happen. And so, you have to kind of roll with it and run with it. And I feel like, again, over the past 6 years, 200 something episodes, that I've done a pretty good job of being consistent with this. That was one of the sticking points for doing the show when I first started. It was being consistent and putting this show out as a professionally done show. And I hope that people, view it that way and take it seriously that way, and showing up every Saturday, come hell or high water, or whatever happens, technical difficulties, guests, not showing up or whatnot, but being here and trying to make the best show that I possibly can. And so I can't do that without you. And I always thank you for that. And so I always want to apologize for that because, you know, while I enjoy these solo chats and solo fireside chats, and really plan on doing, more of them, but a little more scheduled. The impromptu ones and the last minute ones can be a bit off-putting at times, because it is last minute. Ah, I always tell my guests that time goes by exceedingly quick. When you're doing the show, and we are coming up on an hour doing the show already. And I think I'm probably going to do a more in-depth training or episode. I think, and that one probably may be recorded. That I'll do on. Deeper talk on how businesses, brands, and companies can use and leverage these technologies. And that's really, a part of why, I bring a lot of my guests on is kind of to help explain some of the ways that they're helping businesses and brands leverage these newer technologies. Um, Again, my name's more on the technical side of it and the project management side of it. So I really wanted to kind of pick his brain on kind of the user experience. Again, he was coming more from the kind of entertainment side of games and gaming. But then I see it because the majority of who I deal with and the companies and businesses I deal with are corporate. So, how does a corporation, a business, or a brand, how can they use the things that I do, the technologies that are out there? How can they use them to leverage and again make their business or brand engaging, uh, interactive, because I feel that that's where it's going. You're no longer able, companies no longer able to just, put out their product, go about their business, and then expect, and not engage with their clientele or their audience, and not engage with them. How can they expect them to continue to come back? And so that's a big part of what I hope is infused in this show of being consistent is that, I'm consistent here. So seeing that I'm consistent and engaging with you, you come back. And you have, regardless of what's all the stuff that's happened. And I may do an episode on that, all the mishaps, all the things, all the, you know, kind of roll with it things that I've had to do over my time doing this show. I think that may be a good episode as well. Anybody just jumping in? Jump into the comments, say hey, where you tuning in from, all that kind of good stuff. My name is Don Terrell. You are joining me today. Originally, we were supposed to have my guest Monday, Atugono, on game developer and interact project manager. We were supposed to have him on, but again, a last minute issue came up and he was not able to come to on the show today. So we've had to pivot, as I've had to do a few times. And it's just the nature of life. Sometimes you have to pivot, and sometimes things come up. But we've been talking about um, interactive experiences, gamification, because again, that was kind of what I wanted to kind of dive a little into with money about was just using games and gamification and the end user experience, and thinking about that and how you manage all of that together. Um, so hopefully, we'll be able to have a fun conversation with him down the line there, for sure. Uh, man, oh man, oh man. I want this was gonna be. I knew this was gonna be kind of a short one, and I wanted this to be short but impactful for sure. I don't want to kind of end this without kind of testing out this new space here. The jobs board is this segment where I'm pulling uh, job leads that I come across my feed that I feel like would be a good fit for somebody out there. And definitely has been something I've been wanting to share. I definitely want to make this show as resourceful as possible. And I think this, definitely helps. A lot of artists are struggling trying to find jobs. But there are a lot of people that are getting jobs. And these are some, again, that are coming across my feed. And I wanted to pull like the last recent ones. I think these came in Friday, yesterday for me on my feed. What is this? This one's ReelFX. The first one, senior modeling artist, ReelFX. Of course, it's Montreal, but it's ReelFX, and they're looking for a senior modeling artist. I'm not sure if it's a remote or a hybrid position. Probably not. Probably on location type of thing. But they are looking for a senior modeling artist. Definitely check it out. As always, all these job leads that I put in or show will be in the show notes. There'll be a link to the post, and there'll be a link to where you can apply, which you'll find in the post when you go to it. But I supply both. But definitely they'll be in the show notes once the episode goes live, and everything, so you can check it out there. This one here, CFX development artist, digital domain. This is digital domain, and they're looking for a CFX development artist. So these are big companies, ReelFX and digital domain. You never know. You might be able to find a good one there. I don't know why this is coming in low. Let me change this here. Mr. Dewan, happy Saturday to you there. I hope that you're doing well as well. I hope that you're doing great as well. I always appreciate you supporting the show and checking out the show. Again, as I close out kind of this episode, big apologies for kind of the way it kind of went out in the show episode went. But I think it was a good episode. We had a great little conversation about um, branding, augmented reality, interactive experiences, and creating an engaging experience for the end user. And I don't think a lot of you know companies think along that line. The end user, most product companies do. Obviously, they're thinking about what's the end user going to experience, and making it easy for the end user to experience it or go through your process definitely helps your brand. And augmented reality, animation, motion graphics are just a great way of explaining a product or process, especially a complicated one, that people will remember and that it will stick with them. So I'm kind of on a mission to get businesses to think a little differently when it comes to thinking out of the box, when it comes to their branding, their marketing, and the campaigns that they do, and the engagement um, that their customers are going through, and how animation, motion graphics, and the fun stuff that we talk about here, how that plays into that, all of that so well. All right, let me take this down here. Again, make sure you check out these job opportunities. Like I said, a lot of people are getting hit pretty good during this time, having to pivot, having to change, not only just total industries, but just change, whether it's location or whatnot. So there's a lot going on within the industry. Oops. A lot going on within the industry. Where's that at? That job board. Where is that? Okay. There it is. There's a lot going on in the industry that a lot of people are having to deal with. And so any help that can be given, and I think that's what I love about this community is, everybody is really helping and looking out for each other. And not just, and I'm talking about the creative, when I say the industry, I'm talking about the creative industry. That's what I love about being creatives, and connecting with creatives. We all kind of help each other and kind of look out for each other and really kind of, are in this kind of club together. So I'm not just talking animation or motion graphics or illustration or, the things that I talk about here, but talking about the creative space as a whole, because I love the creative space as a whole, uh, and what it can do and the things that it does and the people that are in it. So, all right, as we close out this episode, albeit a very different episode, I am super looking forward to next week's show, and next guest. My next guest, Mr. Segun Sampson, creator and visual development artist. Looking forward to talking about the biz dev art side of things. But super looking forward to Segun coming on, and hopefully we won't have the same mishap that we had this week. So I'm super excited about next week. Definitely appreciate the viewers that tuned in, the ones that will tune in on the replay. My apologies for not having my scheduled guests on, but again, thank you for being a understanding audience. That's what makes my Color Emotion family a family that I love so much, because you guys are so forgiving, for sure. Like I said, you don't want to miss next week's. It's gonna be a great one. Definitely got some exciting things planned for the remainder of, we're kind of going through Q2 pretty quick, even though it just started. We got a lot of great things planned for the show. I'm super excited, which I think I'm probably will be doing some teasers, and you may catch tomorrow and throughout the week some impromptu live tests. But I'm super excited about the possibility of live streaming the show live on Instagram, our Instagram channel, which I had mentioned last week and have been mentioning that I've been testing out some new features on the software that I use that now I can live stream to Instagram vertically, not horizontally, but vertically. So I'm super excited about that. That's why, I'm still testing it out. So you may be seeing live stream tests throughout the next couple of weeks. The ones I've been doing before have been private, so they haven't been going up on my page. But now I want to start testing out lives. So if you happen to see it, jump on and let me know, how it's going, because I'm interested to see how this turns out. This is going to be a good one here. With that, we are going to close out this episode here. It's been a fun one for sure. Interesting and fun. I will see you next week. Same bat time, same bat channel. Please have a great week and have a productive one. Cheers, everybody.